Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to talk about the Starcaster Strat by Fender, which is one of the strangest instruments that Fender ever produced. We're going to go over the history of this instrument briefly. We're going to go over what makes it what it is. We're going to unbox our own. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look under the hood and see what's going on under the pick guard, and then we'll do a sound sample. There will be a part 2 to this video where we upgrade every component in the instrument to try to make it the best guitar that I own. So let's go ahead and get started. So when we're talking about the Starcaster, up until about 20 years ago, 20-ish years ago, if you said Fender Starcaster to someone, they would either A, not know what you're talking about, or B, they would think of the Fender Starcaster, which many years ago, Fender created an instrument that was very similar to the Gibson ES-335, 339. It was a semi-hollow body electric guitar. It had a very cool looking headstock with kind of a swooped design, kind of like a Strat. But instead of having a ball at the end, it just kind of swooped down. It was very cool looking, very premium looking today, looking back on it. For whatever reason, Fender decided to discontinue that instrument, and the name Starcaster just kind of disappeared for decades. Enter the 2000s. This is a time when media consumption was probably at its highest point in history. The internet was really starting to pick up. Guitar lessons were getting a lot more popular because big chain stores were starting to offer these services, and everybody wanted to learn how to play the guitar. Fender realized that Squier, which was their budget learner guitar brand, may price some people out of the market, and it may also price some impulse buyers out of the market. To buy this, you would have to go to a guitar store or a music store, and you may have been able to order them online. I'm not really sure. We're talking about the early to mid 2000s here. So Fender had an idea. They said, what if we made guitars and sold them in big box stores like Target, Best Buy, Costco, Sam's Club, put them on the shelves there, make them as cheap as possible, sell them cheaper than Squier, and then when Grandma goes to buy Billy his first guitar for Christmas, or Billy pesters his mom and dad and wants a guitar, they see the one at Walmart, they buy it. They don't know anything about guitars, they don't know the differences between quality and everything else, so they buy it. Somebody who may be on the fence about it will see it at whatever the retail price was, which was between $99 and $199, and they may pull the trigger when they otherwise may not have, considering that the Squier packs and the Squier guitars were a little bit more expensive, and you had to be in a music shop to buy it. So, Fender started producing Starcaster Strat by Fender. And it caught a lot of people in the guitar community by surprise that they would name it that. That would be like if Epiphone Gibson discontinued the SG, and then 40 years later they released SG by Gibson, and it was a Super Strat. It's just, it was nothing like the Starcaster that people knew. And what these were they were basically Squier Strats. They had full thickness bodies, they had 21 frets, they had many different pickup combinations, and the pickups and colors and fretwood, all varied depending on retailers. Certain retailers got certain colors. There was red, there was sunburst, there was black, there was even white, there was blue with like a shiny pick guard. So they come in 3 single coils. There were some that had 2 single coils with a humbucker. There may have even been some that were double humbuckers. And that was the configurations that they came in. When they first started producing them, they had a very odd-shaped headstock. It looked kind of like a triangle, like an arrowhead is what people call it. They refer to that model as the S1. A little bit later on, they came out with a new model. The new model had a big ball on the end of the headstock, kind of like the pre-CBS, in fact, exactly like the pre-CBS Fender Stratocasters. In fact, I've got one with a headstock like that right here. This is a 2002 Squier Affinity Strat. So, from there, they moved on and they went with something that was more like the modern day traditional headstock, which is like this. little bit smaller here. Now, according to my research, the full body guitars were the Arrowhead headstock, the bigger headstock. The smaller headstock, some of them were full size and some of them weren't. So generally, if you got a smaller headstock and you aren't holding the instrument yourself, there's a chance you're going to get one that has a smaller body, like an Affinity Strat, like a Bullet Strat, where the bodies are quite a bit, and they're noticeably thinner, noticeably lighter. Some people, that's a pro for them. Some people, that's a con for them. I would say I prefer them to be full size simply because the weight of the guitar, it just feels better to play it if it's heavier, but that's just me. Everybody's different. So now that we've talked about the different models of this guitar, I want to point out finding information on these is very difficult. And the reason is, I don't think Fender marketed these. I don't want to say they didn't market them well, but they didn't market them heavily. And I think the reason is that they didn't want to undervalue their brand. They were kind of in this weird place where they had Squier. Everybody knew what Squier was. Squier was like the budget Fender. Yeah, it was made by Fender, but it was a Squier. With Starcaster, they didn't want to create another level, and people that just bought a Squier or have a Squier would say, well, mine is a lot better than this Starcaster, right? They didn't want to create that confusion. So it's very hard to find details on what even is in the guitar. What kind of pickups does it have? Some people said they had Alnicos. Who knows? Where did the tuners come from? They probably were Squier tuners. Where did the bodies come from? Who knows? We don't really have a good answer on this. The only thing we can figure out is where it was made, and that's based on the serial number. It follows the same as the Squiers do. The serial numbers. The beginning will tell you where it was made. The numbers will tell you the year, the month, the lot number, or the item number of production. That's really all the information you're going to get. So short of opening it up and looking, it's kind of a mixed bag. They used all different kinds of parts from all different kinds of places. So now that we've discussed it, I got one online for, after shipping and everything to my house, it was less than $100 in my very favorite color, which is the bright Fender red. I'm not sure exactly which shade it is, if it's Fiesta red or Torino red. I'm not sure exactly which one it is. It has the Arrowhead headstock, so it is an S1, an original Starcaster. So it's upstairs. Let's go up there. I'm going to hand the camera to my wife, and I'm going to open it up on camera for you right now. Alright, so here it is. I'm going to go ahead and open it up now and see if it's what I think it is. Yeah, here we go. Starcaster. It doesn't have a serial number, so there's no way to know when it was made. But it is full size. Supposedly some of these are thinner than others, but this is full size. A full size red Fender body you can't even buy. It would be candy apple red, which is darker, and it would be $249 straight from Fender. So just for the body alone, it's worth it. It also has a 12-inch radius neck, which is very unusual for a Strat. Pardon the baby. The fret ends are smooth. The big complaints about these is that the fret ends are sharp. Well, that's very, very exciting. Okay, so here we go. We've got an S1 Starcaster. I don't even know where to begin in covering this instrument. One thing I want to say before I get started going over this, you know how there's a guitar that you like always wanted, or there's one that you just dream of having? Usually it's really expensive. For me, it's the 1963 Gibson Firebird 7. Since I was a kid, that was the one I always wanted. They've only gone up in price, and I'll probably never be able to get one now. But there's also guitars that you always wanted that weren't necessarily expensive, and they weren't necessarily rare. They were just not being sold by anyone. This is the one for me. I heard about these because I had a guitar student when I was younger, when I was in high school, and he had one of these that his mom bought him from Walmart, I think it was. And from what I remember, the fret ends were really sharp, but I just thought that this looked so weird and so cool. Some people hate this headstock and think it looks awful, and I get that. It doesn't look like a Fender at all. We'll get more into that in a minute though, because it does look like a Fender, and I'll show you why. So anyway, ever since I saw that, I always wanted one. I always wish I had a full-size Strat in bright red. The one I have is an Infinity. And I always imagine myself, when I think of myself playing the guitar, or when I think about myself as a guitarist, I picture myself with a red Strat. I guess a lot of people do, because the emoji for a guitar on an iPhone is a red Strat. So I always wanted one, but I didn't want to buy another Mexican one because I already had one and whatever. So I always said, if I find a Starcaster that's red, I'll buy it. And here it is. So let's go ahead and get started talking about this thing. So first of all, this guitar is definitely relicked. There's a pretty big gash right here, which is, that's okay. I'm not going to cry about that. It happens. But we don't need to talk about the specifics of this instrument right now. We'll do that later. So this is a full-size body. Same size as a regular Mexican Fender, American Fender. It feels about the same weight. If we look here, we have a regular input jack position. I don't think these three knobs are original. They look like they're, I doubt they aged naturally. Also, they didn't age to have gold in the numbers. So these are aftermarket. Switch tip is missing. Switch sounds very nice. The pickups don't look like they have staggered pole pieces. They look flat, just like a Squire. The pick guard, interestingly, is 3-ply. 3-ply parchment, I believe. If we look at the back, it's got a pretty nice cover here. I mean, it's very thick and it's textured. It's not like that thin, glossy, crappy one. Neck plate, just your standard stamp, or not stamps, just your standard rolled metal. It is kind of thick though. It's not as thin as I expected it to be at this price point. The strap buttons are pretty standard. I mean, there's nothing special there. It does have the little cloth underneath them though, which is a nice touch. They didn't have to put that, but they did. The bridge is what you would expect as well. It's just a plain old bridge. It looks like an import bridge off of a Squire or something similar to that, or a Bullet. Non-stamped saddles. If we go to the neck is the highlight of the guitar if the body isn't. Holy cow, this neck is awesome. There's absolutely no sharp frets at all. And I don't know if that was because of someone played it enough that they filed it down naturally with their hand. I don't know if somebody who owned this guitar before, you know, took sanding to it and finished it, but it is amazing. It feels great. These guitars came with a 12-inch radius, which is kind of rare for a Strat. We'll go into that real quick. So if you wanted to get a Strat with a 12-inch radius and a full-size body, you're going to be paying quite a bit of money. Unless you can find a Squire 2 cheaply. There's one in my local shop for about $150, made in Korea, I believe. It is a red, just like this, 12-inch radius. It's from the 90s. There was also the Squire series. We talked about one of those, but an earlier one from the 90s from Korea also had a 12-inch radius. Then if you come to today, the contemporary Squires have 12-inch radius, but it's not rosewood, it's Indian laurel or maple. I personally don't like that, but that's just me. Long story short, it's going to be difficult to find a full scale length 12-inch radius Strat neck. I like them personally because I like to play lead a lot, and it's a lot easier to do that on a flatter neck. That's why Ibanez and those kind of brands have like 28-inch radius. I'm kidding. It's not really that flat, but talking more about the neck, you've got 21 frets here. The inlays don't feel like stickers. They feel like they're actually in there, and they are flush with the fretboard. They feel really nice. The rosewood is very nice looking. It's got some streaking in the wood, which I like that about rosewood. If you look at the back, there is a skunk stripe. and you cannot feel it. It's flush with the rest of the neck. The back of the neck also feels smooth, but not like overly glossy, like some of the classic vibes are. If we look at the tuners, they just look like your standard tuners. Now these aren't the terrible trapezoid tuners that everybody hates. They're actually a little better than that. If we look at the front here, we've got just your standard nut. It's not slipping around in there. It looks like the place where the fretboard meets the neck and the headstock is very well done, very flush, I should say. Then the string trees. And then there's that ridiculous logo, Starcaster, super stylized by Fender, which is in script instead of in sans serif font like they do now. The later revisions of this guitar, they actually just put Starcaster in like this Arial black font, Starcaster. I don't like that one as much. This one is just super weird. So if we want to talk about this headstock shape now. So this headstock shape is not new to Fender. It wasn't new to Fender. Back in the 60s, late 60s, they released an instrument called the Fender Swinger. And the Fender Swinger was a way for Fender to get rid of all these extra parts they had for the Fender Bass 5, or Bass V, however you want to say it, and the Duosonic 2. They had a bunch of all these extra parts laying around, so they decided, let's make a new instrument and just throw all this crap together and call it the Swinger. And it had a headstock that looked identical to this. Same shape and everything. I'm absolutely certain that they got this design from the Swinger. I don't know why they did that. You'd think it would be cheaper for them to just take existing bullet necks and put them on here, but they didn't. They went with something new. And the interesting parallel here to the Swinger is, I think these guitars were made with extra parts. The body probably came from a Squier Standard, Squier SE, which were the Squiers that came in packs. Not the Affinity pack, but just the Squier pack. They had full-size bodies. I'm thinking that this might have come from there. The rest of the hardware could have come from there too. Who knows? The neck, though, it likely originated in the same kind of place, like the bullets. The headstock is weird, though. Maybe it was cheaper for them to not have to cut as much. There's only 1, 2, and then these here to finish the cuts. Who knows? Okay. Well, now that we've talked about it, let's take it out to the workbench and see what is going on underneath this pickguard. I am incredibly curious to see. Is it Alnico? Is it ceramic? What else is in there? Is it stock? We probably won't know unless it's super obvious because of the lack of documentation on this guitar. So let's go out to the garage and throw this on the workbench. Okay, so we got it here on the bench, and what we're going to do is look under the pickguard and see what's going on under there. But before we do that, I wanted to take some time here to just go over some of the measurements. Now, this is an 11-hole pickguard, and I think that's standard for Mexican and import strats. Americans might use more. Not 100% sure on that. One thing I definitely wanted to check, though, was the radius of the neck. So I'm going to take my little radius gauge here of 12 and confirm it is a 12-inch radius. Now, on that, we've talked about that on this channel before, but effectively, the higher the number is on the radius, in this case 12, the flatter it is. Makes it easier to play leads. Some say it's more difficult to play rhythm because your fingers have to be farther apart, but if you've been playing for long enough, you'll definitely appreciate the benefits of lead over the drawbacks of rhythm and chording. So I really like that. So it is indeed a 12-inch radius. Something I wanted to mention that I didn't mention earlier, with the 12-inch radius, if you were to buy a Strat that was full size with a 12-inch radius, you're going to be looking somewhere in the range of 200 if you're lucky to 500 to 600. And so that makes this, just for that alone, a great deal if you get one with a good neck. So let's open up our, this is from Music Nomad. It's a tool kit, screwdriver kit. So let's pull out our screwdriver and take a look under the pickguard. You know what though? It does have Phillips. Never mind. I have not used this yet. So this is the first time I've opened it. It's really nice. And there's a little attachment here. I believe it just goes in like that. Right? There we go. There we go. All right, let's pull this off or unscrew this. I think this bit is too big. Wow, I'm just not doing a good job for you right now. Sorry about that. Let's take this pick guard off. I cannot wait to see what's in here. I'm not gonna make you watch me unscrew all of these, so I'm gonna stop the camera and I'll start it again when I get all the screws off. I got all the screws off. I'm anxious to see if the screw holes actually were this way originally, or if these were screwed in, if this is an aftermarket pick guard, I have no idea. So let's loosen the strings. I don't want to take them off because I'm going to do a sound sample with this later. Let's just loosen them enough to get the pick guard up so we can see what's going on in there. So we're going to loosen those quite a bit. Look at that, it's loose. That's not good. Hope that doesn't cause a problem when we install the new tuners in part 2. All right, those are pretty loose. All right, oops, it just came off. Let's try and, damn. Let's try and pull this guard off. It's stuck on there pretty good. Wow. Does not want to come off. I've never run into this before. There we go. All right. Did I just take the tone out of the guitar by unsealing it? Did I just open, is it like opening a tomb? All right, let's see. I need to loosen a little bit more to get that. Yeah, I'm really concerned about this tuning machine up here being so loose. All right, there we go, there we go. There we go. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's see if we can get it. I'm gonna have to bring the camera over to show you this. So let me cut this and I will bring it over. Okay. So if we look here, it's very hard to see, but we've got ceramic magnets, we have very small pots, and we have an import switch. There we go. Very small pots, import switch. The body is routed SSH, just as I was hoping. And again, there's a good look there. You've got 3 single coils with 1 magnet on the bottom. I like those instead of the ones with 2 magnets on either side. And very small pots. Pretty much what I expected. So, yeah, let's talk about that. While I swing this back around, let's talk about what we found here. So basically, this confirms to me that it's got basically Squire pickups. I mean, these are the same ones you're going to find in an Affinity. These are the same ones you're going to find in a Bullet. These are the same ones you're going to find in a Mexican at the time as well. So, nothing special there. I was thinking and hoping that we might have hit the jackpot and gotten Alnico, but that's okay. When you're looking for a traditional Strat sound, it's not going to be Alnico anyway, so... and we're going to end up replacing them. You might notice laying around here some extra parts, and those may or may not be installed in this guitar in part 2. So, now that we have gone under the hood and looked at it, you know, before we finish this section, we need to take the back piece off and take a look at what's going on with this bridge. and see what kind of trem block we got. So let me get these screws back on and then I'll flip it over. Before we tighten up the E string, I just wanted to show you, it looks like the problem is not the screw, thankfully. It's the nut on the other side. So since I'm gonna end up replacing these, I'm not gonna bother fixing it. But to fix that, what you would do is you would take a tool like this and you would stick it on here and tighten it up. So let's look underneath the trem plate here. Let me see if I've got that on in frame. I need to move this back a little bit. There we go. And that's too thick, so we're going to switch to a smaller one. And like I said before, this is a really nice back plate. It's textured, it's thick. I can kind of see something going on through the grooves here. I think the person that owned this before blocked it with a piece of, I don't know what. Looks like paper from here, but it definitely isn't paper. It's probably a piece of wood, some sort of rod. We'll see. Now, honestly, it looks kind of like a drumstick. That would be hilarious if they broke off a piece of a drumstick. Let me know in the comments, have you heard of that before? Of people using drumsticks to block their trems? That's really funny. I've never heard of that. Makes sense though, right? People usually use the stuff that they have laying around to get the job done. In fact, those Fender rubber rings that people put on their guitars to keep the strap from falling off, those actually were originally seals for beer, and they happened to fit. They stick them on there like that. Okay, so if we look down, pull up this camera again. If we look down there, it's a very, very skinny block. Here's looks like it might be the factory joint there, the solder job. This does look like a drumstick. I want to pull that out and see what's going on, because that's awesome. If it is a drumstick. Think of here. Let's see. Get some leverage to pull the. Well, we can't pull it, can we? They jammed it in there real good, didn't they? Let's see. I'm sure I've got a tool for the job. Probably just this would work, right? Oh. Man, I don't like doing that. Mess up the finish and all kinds of... Man, they got that in there real good. I don't want to mess that up. But we do have this cover, so it's going to hide anything that happens here. Use a blade. That might be better. Use something flat. Is it going to slam when I get it out? Maybe. It might. Ready? No, not really. Yeah, it looks like a drumstick. It looks like they took the end of a drumstick and stuck it in there to block it. Oh, wow, you can really see. You can really see how thin it is. That's crazy. Well, let's get her back together and then we'll wrap up. So now we've got it back together. And I gotta say, I'm not impressed, so to speak. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It also isn't the hidden gem I thought it was going to be either with the electronics. These are your standard affinity, bullet, Mexican pickups, which isn't really bad. They're not bad pickups, but they're nothing special. The pots, they're small. That's also to be expected. That's something that they do. They don't do that on Mexicans, but they do that on affinities and bullets. Again, that's kind of what I expected. The switch is an import switch. That's what I expected. The pick guard looks like it probably is original. Did not expect that it would be double ply or triple ply like this. I don't think someone went through the trouble of replacing the pick guard though, just to leave these pickups in there. I think it's probably original as well. All in all, from build quality perspective, it's absolutely worth, if you can get it under 200 bucks, it's absolutely worth it. Even without us going through the sound sample yet, even the pickups are bum. I mean, if they work at all, and there's no way that they would have sourced them anywhere other than where they were already getting them, it's probably going to be worth it. I think it's great for this price. Unless you can find a Japanese or maybe a Squire 2, only because it's more rare if you like the traditional headstock shape. But I highly recommend this just from how the neck feels, the construction. It definitely punches above its weight. Anything new in that price range hardly exists, but if it does, you have to get something like an IYV, which I like those. I did one of those on this channel. But if you're going to get a Strat, I think you should get something made by Fender. And this is made by Fender, technically. It's unique and it'll catch some eyes, and I think it's pretty cool. Well, now that we've gone over that, let's go back to the basement and let's do a sound sample with a combo amp, which is something that would probably normally this guitar would be used for. Then at the very end, we will do a sound sample with some better audio over a backing track. So now that we've gone over kind of what's under the hood, the parts that they're using, and the general specs of the guitar, let's go ahead and plug it into this little combo amp that I've got sitting here and just see how it sounds in the room. I'm not going to do any direct input or anything like that for this sound test. I will do that for the very end. We'll do a blues track, a blues jam for the outro. Let's plug it in and see what we get. This is the amp that we'll be using today. This is the Fender Mustang 1 V2. This is a perfect basement or bedroom amp, and I will do a full video on this later, but it packs in a ton of really good sounds. It has emulation for like a Fender Twin Reverb and 57 Deluxe and all different kinds of amps, and you can do pedals and all kinds of stuff with the software. But what we're going to do is we're just going to plug the guitar straight into this amp, try a few different settings, and see how it sounds. I'm going to move the tripod down facing the guitar. The back of the camera will be the amp. So hopefully you'll be able to hear what I hear in the room as opposed to what it would sound like through an audio interface. I think it's important to do sound demos this way as well. So let's go ahead and drop it down, get it done. Okay, so here we go. Let's turn the amp on here. Alright, now the first setting that I'm going to do, we're going to start with the neck position. And I'm just going to put it on a Twin Reverb clean sound. There we go. Alright, let's go to the neck. Sounds a little harsh on the clean. That's kind of what I'm hearing here. I bet it'll sound great on overdrive, but yeah, that's not a great sound on clean. It sounds pretty good though on the neck position though. Okay, I like that. That sound is good right there. Let's put on some, let's go to some like crazy, like Zakk Wylde kind of sound for this. That sounds okay. I mean, it cuts through, that's for sure. It's not as beefy as a humbucker, but that's not what single coils are for. Alright, let's put it on the, let's see what it sounds like up here on the neck. That sounds pretty good too. Not as good as the clean. So far the only winner is the clean sound on the neck. Let's do one more. I want to put it on like a heavy reverb overdrive. Sounds pretty good. Well, I think that sounded pretty good, actually. It sounded as good as any of the Squires that I have. I think that the neck position sounded great with clean, sounded okay with overdrive. Bridge position was a little bit harsh to me. The treble was just a little out of control on it, and with overdrive it sounded pretty good. But with clean, it just wasn't doing it for me. I like the guitar a lot. The neck feels so nice. That 12-inch radius, you can really feel it. It's just so flat and so easy to play. It actually stays in tune pretty well, and the sustain is okay, considering that small little block that it has. But there needs to be a part 2 to this video. What we're gonna do is we're going to replace everything in this Starcaster. We're gonna make it the best guitar that I own. And for a small preview, we've got Invader humbucker, we've got some weirdo Invader single coils, locking tuners, gold plate, gold screws, weirdo neck plate, mint green pick guard. So we're gonna go all out. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more. Part 2 is coming very soon where we install all of these parts. For now, enjoy the outro. I'm gonna go ahead and play over a backing track and really give this stock Starcaster its last hurrah before we mod the hell out of it. Thank you.